Hi, my name is Niina and you're listening Together Through the Storms podcast. Welcome to the journey with me. I would like to begin by acknowledging traditional owners of the land where I'm recording this episode today, which is the Wurrung country. I would like to pay my respects to the elders past and present and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening today. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining me on Together Through the Storms podcast. My name is Niina, and I am so excited about today's episode. In my podcast, I am doing some solo episodes, as you would have heard in the previous episodes, but I'm also engaging with guests. In our previous episode, we had a beautiful mom, Hannah, who was sharing her story with us. I'm also introducing and talking to different specialists, organizations, and providers that all work very closely with our beautiful children with additional needs. My aim is to bring awareness to the supports that are available out there and also have these specialists and organizations and providers' voice being included as they have such a significant impact on our children's journey. It's very empowering and relieving when you feel that you've managed to establish a strong, warm, and knowledgeable care team around your child. And I personally have experienced that it takes huge amount of pressure away from your shoulders when you have the right people in your corner. In today's episode, I will be talking to Hannah. Hannah is a speech pathologist and she's kindly joining us today. She will be sharing some insights in how she operates in her role and what she believes her impact is on children and on families that she works with. She also has some thoughts for families that may be considering engaging with a speech pathologist. So if you're ready, let's jump into the episode. Hi, Hannah, and welcome Together Through the Storms podcast.
Hi, Niina. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. You're my very first specialist guest, and I'm so lucky to have you here with me.
It's very exciting.
It is, isn't it? First, I thought maybe you would like to share a little bit about yourself. That would be great.
So my name's Hannah. I am a speech pathologist by name, but I work quite holistically in the early years space, so cover lots of bases for the children that I'm working with. So I feel like a better description is probably early years practitioner rather than speech pathologist, but I do lots of speech work. I am a mum of two boys who are very rapidly turning into young men. And yeah, they're beautiful and a great way for me to keep learning and growing as well. I started out actually studying psychology when I left school. So my undergrad was in psychology and always wanted to be sort of in that helping field, I suppose, working with people, wanting to support them along their journey. Psychology at the time, I didn't want to do more study after the undergrad, but then ended up going back and doing a master's in speech pathology. So I was back at it. So yeah, I did my master's up in Brisbane in Queensland and then moved back to Victoria after that, down to Warrnambool for my first job. And since then it's been, I feel old saying it, but it's been about 17 years that I've been working in the speech pathology space. Started off working with adults and children at the hospital, and then moved into community health, early intervention work, done a little bit of private work outside of my own private work, working in school readiness team to support kinder teachers in their role. So I've had lots of variety in my work, which is great. And yeah, now practicing on my own for myself for the last couple of years, which I'm loving. Yeah, really enjoying being able to do things the way that I feel support the families best rather than trying to tick a box like in some of the roles that I was expected to do. And yeah, outside of speech, still in the professional realm, I've done further study in emotion coaching for parents to work with their kids, feeding, so infant feeding, and also feeding around sensory challenges. Done further studying in stuttering and more recently Auslan. So, I feel like it's really important to keep learning new things and supporting the families that I work with in the best way that I can. And yeah, outside of being a speechy, as I said, mum, have way too many plants in my home, love the beach. I do some energy healing on the side as well. So that's around supporting emotional challenges as well. Yeah, that's me.
Wow, that is super fascinating story, all of it. Like your journey, professional journey, we discussed briefly before today's episode, and I was really fascinated by the energy healing side of things. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about yourself. So, Hannah, I ask all of my guests a little icebreaker question at the start. Are you ready for that?
Sure.
All right. As a self-care, what would be your favorite self-care routine at the moment or something that you do regularly?
Mm. I have a favourite spot down the coast that I go and sit, and sometimes I just sit there and watch the surfers out in the ocean. Sometimes I do some journaling or some reading, but it's my time out spot, and the ocean always calms me. So I feel like that's not actually actively doing too much, but it definitely grounds me and brings me back when I need to.
And I feel like sometimes that is exactly what you need as a self-care instead of like being instead of doing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And even just
Oh,
the drive down there is, yeah, beautiful.
I might have some listeners from Finland, so I'm sure they can just imagine the Australian coastline and the beaches and the little spot there. So I think we
Yeah.
can
Yes.
all visualize that
Yeah,
already.
exactly. We'll have to send some photos.
Yes, yes. Amazing. Thank you. All right, that was all of the easy questions, and now we're heading into the challenging ones. Well, not really. But I was wondering if you think about your work, what kind of impact do you feel that you have on children and families that you work with?
I feel like for the children, I'm there supporting them to use their voice, and that may be verbally or in other ways. Lots of the children that I work with are signing and using other forms of communication, but it's around supporting them to be able to use that in the environment that they're in, whether that's their educational environment or community environment, and to be present and to know that they're valued. And even if they do have challenges with their communication, that they can still contribute and be heard in whatever way that happens. I feel like I've seen how that can impact the children and how much that can change their engagement and participation in different environments, and even connecting with peers and educators in those environments too. So I feel like that's one way that I have an impact in that space. And in terms of working with families, I feel like supporting connection within their family unit, but also supporting them to make connections within their communities to realise that they're not alone. A lot of the time, families are feeling like they're the only ones dealing with what they're dealing with, and that
Yeah.
can cause them to feel a bit isolated and insular. And so part of my work, I feel, is to support them to build some of those connections and to feel less alone in that space. I feel like in terms of even working with educators, so working with them to understand the challenges of the children and how much that can impact not only the kids in that environment that I'm working with, but also flow on to the other children in that space and their understanding and acceptance of differences as well. We've got some children learning Auslan through games at Kinder and all that kind of thing, which is really lovely and supporting them to feel included, I suppose, which is really lovely. But yeah, I feel like I feel like the biggest impact or impact that I'd like to have at least is to support expression, whether that's just getting their message across or whether it's around how they're feeling as well, because lots of little people have really big feelings. So it's important to find a way to support them to express that as well. Sometimes I feel like for families and parents that haven't been through the system in some ways before, it's about advocating for them or supporting them to advocate for themselves within that system and the challenges that that brings along the way in all kinds of ways.
That just all sounds so fantastic. And what I'm hearing is that, firstly, I feel like we share a lot of similar goals or visions in terms of the reason why I am doing this podcast, and also like that opportunity for the voice. I really love what you say about being able to have some form of communication, because even though a child might not have words to express themselves, doesn't mean that they wouldn't have the need to express themselves. So that's just so valuable that you work with the little people to find a way to express, whether it's needs or feelings. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing. That was very interesting to hear. From what I know you, Hannah, and what you just shared about the impact that you have on children and families, I think it's quite obvious that you can be very, very proud of your work that you do. But if you have to mention one thing that makes you really proud about your work, what would that be?
I think I would say my ability to look at the child and the situation holistically and recognize that there's more to the child and what's going on for them than just being able to communicate, that they also need to be supported to find their place in the world and connect with peers, educators, outside community. I think seeing the results of that, seeing children engage when they hadn't previously, something that I feel really proud of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I guess it comes down to so many other things, like being able to have your voice, you start to feel more confident, more connected. Like you said, it's so holistic that having a specialist involved who values that holistic approach, I think it's very unique and very valuable. So that's amazing to hear.
Yeah, thanks, Niina.
I think it's very obvious, Hannah, that you're very passionate about your work, but I think every job has some form of challenges. So would you be able to name something that you find as a bit of a challenge in your work?
Yeah, sure. I feel like everyone has this challenge of work-life balance, but that's something that is a challenge in this space as well. My biggest challenge, which I don't know if I should be admitting, is that I am a people person and I am absolutely passionate about what I do and love working with the children and families that I work with. But I'm not very business minded, and getting the business side of things in flow is something that I find really challenging.
I can imagine your role is so much around helping, and then business mind is probably a little bit different mindset.
Bit more structured. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, it's time for our last question. Thank you so much for the valuable insights, Hannah. The last question would be around if there's a family right now listening and considering whether or not they should engage with a speech pathologist for their child with additional needs. Do you have any guidance or any words of wisdom or any advice on if somebody's in a situation like this thinking?
Yeah, sure. Give us a call. Have a chat about your child's and your family's needs. I feel like sometimes people don't even realize how much speech pathologists can do, or the breadth of their knowledge and practice. So in sharing your situation, you might realize that a speechy could help with more than what you realize they could. And I think if people are not sure about who to engage with, having a look on websites can generally give you a good feel of what that particular speech pathologist is bringing and whether that might fit for your family. And most of us try to work within the realms of your everyday world. So if you're feeling like we're going to add another 20 things to your plate, that's not always necessarily the case. A lot of the time we can incorporate our practice into your daily routines and make it much easier for you than what you might be imagining. So I would say don't be afraid to at least explore the option. there's a lot of great speech pathologists around. So have a look, give them a call and have a chat.
I think both of those advice I can just, as a mom engaging with a speech pathologist for their children, I can really relate. Like my number one concern is always like, how much time does this involve? I'm just visualizing myself driving in the traffic, running from work. And, it doesn't have to be like that. Like you mentioned before, that you work flexibly in different settings. And
yeah, that was one other thing I didn't say. Quite often we can go into the settings where the children are. So I go and see children at childcare or kinder or at school, as well as home and in the clinic. So yeah, there is that flexibility there as well to support families who are busy and working and
takes a bit of the pressure.
all of the things.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think from my own experience, I've also been very surprised in how holistically they can work. Maybe we don't always realize that the support is holistic, and some of it targets the whole family as well. So that's also very good to know. But if you want to look into Hannah's work more and want to engage with Hannah, I will link her website into the episode description so you can go and have a look and maybe engage with Hannah. Just have a chat, like Hannah said.
I'm always up for it.
And I think you're very approachable. So I think people will find it easier to connect after hearing from you and your work. So thank you so much for joining me today, Hannah.
Thank you, Niina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And perhaps we'll hear from you again in the future.
Yeah, we might have a special topic episode.
Yes, maybe next around the energy healing. I'm dying to find out more about that.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you. See you later.
Niina. See you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining today's episode. I really appreciate you listening. Don't forget to hit the follow button on Spotify to ensure that you're always up to date with the newest episode. And if you have any feedback or any thoughts around what specialist organizations or providers you would like me to engage with, please let me know your thoughts on my Instagram, Together Through the Storms. I would love to have a chat with you. See you back here next week when we are going to talk about everything related to initial diagnosis. It's going to be huge. You don't want to miss that. Have a great week and see you all soon. Bye.